This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
School rally. Students walk out to protest school board's trauma-blind response to hazing charges.
Rapid release. The Houston government says it's just getting business done. The opposition says, why the rush?
And idle market. The scenery is world-class, but finding buyers for the businesses along the Cabot Trail is proving to be a slow climb.
Light snow tonight, but clearing out nicely for Thursday and turning quiet for a couple of days. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. Dozens of students and adults rallied outside of a Truro area school this morning. It was in response to how the Centre for Education has handled the return of a student who is facing criminal charges over a recent hazing incident.
As the CBC's Luke Ettinger reports, they're asking for a more trauma-informed approach for the victims.
About 60 students and adults rallied outside of a Truro area school on Wednesday morning. They say last week at least one student charged in alleged hockey hazing returned to the school. The same school at least one of the alleged victims also attends.
Stand up on your friends, folks.
What started as a small protest of adults quickly grew as students walked out to join.
And that gives me a lot of hope for the type of community that we are and that we hope to be.
Rally organizer Sarah Stewart-Clark says the decision was made by the Chignecto Central Regional Centre for Education.
Our schools say that they act in a trauma-informed way, but expecting a child or a student to go to school with someone who has sexually assaulted them with a weapon is not trauma-informed.
This month, RCMP arrested a total of 4 youth in relation to a sexual assault investigation. A hockey teammate reported being assaulted during a private gathering in October. According to court documents sworn on Tuesday, the weapon was a miniature hockey stick. RCMP formally charged 2 of the accused this week. Both are free on conditions and have been ordered to stay away from 3 youths. They have also been banned from public locker rooms unless accompanied by an adult. In a statement, Chignecto Central Regional Centre for Education says in circumstances where the youth criminal justice system is engaged, they work with police to understand and operationalize any conditions that may be imposed by the police or the courts that have implications on their schools. Luke Ettinger, CBC News, Truro.
RCMP has arrested a man following a hate-motivated incident at a youth hockey game earlier this month. On February the 6th, a spectator shouted a hateful comment toward a youth refereeing a game at the Eastern Shore Community Centre. Police say the referee ended the game and asked the spectator to leave. This week, officers arrested a 39-year-old man from East Chesapeake for mischief in connection to the incident.
In less than 72 hours, the Progressive Conservative government of Premier Tim Houston has released a budget, a capital plan, and 6 bills affecting no less than 30 pieces of legislation. As Taryn Grant reports, the Premier says he's just trying to serve Nova Scotians efficiently, but opposition leaders don't take him at his word.
Look, there's work to be done, so we've come to work. We're going to do the work.
The work Premier Tim Houston is referring to is happening quickly. Barely 3 days into this session, the government has tabled a budget and dozens of legislative changes. Opposition members say it's happening too fast. Not that they're surprised. Short, packed sessions have become the norm for the Houston government.
We sit the least number of days of any legislature in the country.
Every subsequent session, there is more and more retraction of wanting to be held accountable.
Debate has begun for the government's deficit budget and the many associated program and workforce cuts. 6 government bills have now been tabled, including 3 on Wednesday alone. Opposition leaders say the pace and scope of changes make it hard for the public to keep up, and they say that's by design.
We're sitting 13 hours today. That is because this government doesn't want to be here. They don't want media stories. They want to get in and out as quickly as possible.
This is the birthplace of democracy in Canada, and now I think we're beginning to be a laughingstock for those that are paying attention to democratic institutions.
Houston says he's simply acting on the priorities he hears about from Nova Scotians.
We have an agenda, and we don't worry about what the opposition's goals or political tactics are. We just put our legislation forward, we discuss it with Nova Scotians, and we deliver for them in the best way that we know how.
Houston says he likes being in the legislature, but he does not think of it as his main job. He says his priority is promoting Nova Scotia to grow its economy. To that end, he's traveling out of the city on Thursday to attend an energy announcement, and he has plans to attend conferences for seafood, energy, and mining in the coming weeks. Taryn Grant, CBC News at Province House.
Meanwhile, today, the Nova Scotia government tabled legislation to strengthen cannabis enforcement amid its crackdown on illegal dispensaries. Justice Minister Scott Armstrong introduced the legislation that will levy fines against landlords who knowingly rent to unsanctioned cannabis dispensaries. The legislation says fines for contravening the act will range from $5,000 to $25,000.
It could be something where the police give them a heads up or someone else gives them a heads up, but it's not like we're going to surprise everybody here. This just gives the authorities the power to try to make sure that landlords understand that they must comply with the legislation as well.
Armstrong's amendments also include fines for advertising at sites not authorized by the province.
The government is also amending the Crown Lands Act to give it the power to remove and impound vehicles on provincial Crown lands when they are in violation of the act. Finance Minister John Lohr acknowledged that the change followed protests last fall at Hunter's Mountain by Mi'kmaq land protectors.
Well, I think during those protests we learned we didn't have that ability. Whether we would have used it had we had the ability or not, I don't know. I can't answer to that. But the reality is we realized we didn't have that ability and thought that should be something that we should be able to do.
The change is one of more than 20 included in the Financial Measures Act, omnibus legislation that allows the budget to be enacted.
Nova Scotia's largest union held a rally today to raise awareness about budget cuts and layoffs impacting their members. NSGEU members gathered outside Province House to show their support. The union's president says members are finding out each day that cuts are coming to their departments and they are nervous. Earlier this week, government officials said these cuts would not impact frontline or core staff, but the union president says they will still have a big impact on services.
It may not be the frontline folks that they're cutting, but if they're cutting support staff in those offices, our frontline folks are going to be having to do more work as they lay off folks and we see attrition and they don't backfill these positions. That is more work for the frontline folks that exist. So we're very concerned about that.
The province is planning to cut civil service jobs by 5% and the public sector by 3% each year over the next 4 years. And here now with a quick look at the weather forecast, Ryan Snoddon.
And a bit of snow coming.
Bit of light snow coming in and already arriving for western areas and spreading in across the province throughout this evening. Tom and Amy, thanks so much. This is not really going to amount to a whole lot, no question. You can see we're looking at about 2 to 5 centimeters across the board here. Now, the best chance of getting into those 5 to 10 centimeter pockets going to be up towards the Cabot Mountains, Mount Tom, and also in through Cape Breton, a solid 5 to 10 centimeters there. Cape Breton Highlands could squeak up into the 10 to 15 centimeter range. But we will also see, as the snow comes in tonight, the southwest winds and a mix over to some light rain and drizzle. Temperatures will rise overnight above the freezing mark for most of us anyway. And then by the time we get to Thursday, we're going to be looking at some lingering showers, flurries, and yes, some sunshine breaking in as well. So if it's closer to a couple centimeters in your driveway, I'd say drive over it. Mother Nature will take care of the rest throughout the day tomorrow. As we will see for the rest of the week, a big storm system passing to our south thanks to this area of high pressure, which means sunglasses will be needed for Friday and into Saturday. Cold shot coming next week, though. We'll talk about that coming up.
Get ready. Okay, thanks Ryan.
Thank you.
The province has set aside money to establish an office for a child and youth advocate. It's a move social workers say they've been pushing for the last decade. Shayna Luck has the story.
Monday's provincial budget included $300,000 for the Child and Youth Advocate Office. The Houston government made the commitment in 2021.
Definitely a relief to finally see this crucial office come to life. $300,000 is an initial startup, a place to hire an advocate and start to build from there. Comes at a time when children and youth and their families need a strong voice to advocate for the policies and the programs that are going to get them through the next few years.
But Stratford says the budget will need to grow. He wanted to see it at $6.5 million. That's what Manitoba's youth advocate got recently. PEI and New Brunswick both have offices with annual budgets between $1.7 and $2.6 million. Stratford says government officials have told him the intention is to increase the money in the future, but they've made no firm commitments. The minister responsible says some details of how the office will run are still being worked out.
I can't speculate about what might be in a future budget, but what I'll say is that once the regulations are in place, then we'll be able to share those details.
Department officials confirm the plan is for the office to begin work next January. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
Some businesses along the Cabot Trail are having a hard time on the real estate market. Shop owners looking to sell are struggling to find the right person to continue their business. The CBC's Anna Rack has the story.
Driving down the Cabot Trail, you can see the odd for sale sign in front of businesses, some of which have been there for years. Doucette's Market and Eatery has been up for sale for 5 years. Co-owner Trina Doucette says it isn't due to lack of interest.
All the business that have sold are people that want to just run something seasonally. They just want that few months, and then maybe they can go do something else in the winter months. So having the year-round business maybe is not quite as appealing to everybody.
As you continue driving down the trail, you can see the Clucking Hen restaurant. The seasonal restaurant is also up for sale. Melody Dauphney works at a leather workshop down the road. She owned the restaurant for 23 years before selling it to the current owners almost 3 years ago. She says she sold because of rising costs, which can discourage a buyer.
It's the expenses for sure, because you've got more of an overhead with heat, you've got plowing, and you just the unpredictability of what you're going to have for a customer, but you still have to have staff to look after that.
Down the street from the leather workshop, you can find this old church building. It houses a chocolate shop and gallery, which has been up for sale for 2 years. Penny Steele owns the shop with her sister. She says business is booming, but they are ready to retire.
We've had it up for sale, and we want to sell, but we sort of face the fact that finding the right person to take it on.
Janessa McInnes is the real estate agent covering these businesses. She says it can take time to find the right fit, but says the right person is out there for each business on the market.
There are more eyes turning and looking at Cape Breton. There are more people that see the benefit of living here, that understand the potential that's here and the future that's here.
While these business owners are ready to hand over the keys, finding a buyer that wants to keep the business alive is harder than expected. Anna Rack, CBC News, Englishtown.
Tax rates in the Cape Breton Regional Municipality are not expected to rise this year. Mayor Cecil Clark says property values rose in the municipality in 2025, but that does not mean there will be a lot of new public spending. Public meetings start this week to consider CBRM's upcoming budget. Clark says improvements to Centre 200's arena will have to wait, while council plans for infrastructure needs such as transit and housing.
The Argyle Fine Art Gallery in Halifax is appealing to the public after 2 art pieces were stolen last week. The hand-drawn pictures that were stolen depicted 2 chickadees and were done by a local artist. They received support from the community after they posted about the thefts on social media. The gallery owner says there will be a cash reward for the return of the art.
People have to remember that when you're stealing art, you're kind of taking away from a lot of things. It's not just our small business and the monetary side of it, but those pieces have taken hundreds of hours to do by the artist.
Afford says a theft has happened once before at the art gallery, and the piece of art was eventually returned. She's hoping for a similar outcome.
Halifax Regional Police welcomed 4 new members to the force today.
And although they don't wear badges, they're not your average officers.
Meet the newest members of the Canine Squad, Spirit, Libby, Goose, and Yogi. The chief of police presented them with their badges in a ceremony this morning.
There you go. They do have badges. The animals are especially trained to search for suspects and missing people and detect illegal drugs and explosives. They're required to pass behavioral tests and a medical examination before joining the unit.
Ryan is up next with the full weather forecast. Do stay with us.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
All right, we'll call it an active period in the weather center. Those systems, the weather systems, they just keep on coming.
Yes, but some mild temperatures coming as well.
Mild temperatures coming in for tomorrow. And I was mentioning earlier, I think, if you're closer to 2 centimeters, it's 2 to 5 tonight for most. If it's closer to 2, even 5. Yeah, drive over it, I
might
think.
do that.
Yeah, because the sun's coming out tomorrow. Yeah, the sun's coming out tomorrow. Temperatures are going to be on the plus side. That will really help with the melting. It's already going to be slushy when we wake up, thanks to the change to showers. The snow is coming, though. Have a look at this. This is a live webcam shot, Nova Scotia webcams of Yarmouth. And you can see things on the wharf there, a little snowy. But not too bad, really. Just a trace. But if you are driving around this evening, things could get a little on the slick side as we look at those temperatures out there right now. 1 at back row, so already starting to see those plus side temps. And we are going to be looking at those temps rising overnight tonight as the southwest wind does kick in. Sustained in the 10, 20 kilometer per hour range. We're going to see some gusts to 30, maybe 40. Already starting to see some signs of that in Yarmouth at gusting to 30 at last check. And the radar picking up some of this light snow coming in. A lot of this, based on this afternoon, was coming in but not actually making it to the surface. But we can tell you that, the snow obviously arrived in Yarmouth and is starting to push in through central areas. And then we are looking at that system to move through at a pretty good clip. Mild air to follow it. High pressure will follow that and actually keep things pretty quiet for Friday into Saturday. And this area of high pressure helping to drive this storm system to our south. And so we'll actually miss one for Friday, which is Thursday night into Friday, which is nice. We are going to be looking at well, let's first ride the jet stream here. 10 degrees in Vancouver, 5 in Edmonton, 0 in Regina in this cold pocket of air moving down into the Great Lakes. Not the cold pocket we're going to see next week. That's still brewing over the Arctic, but boy, it is going to turn real chilly for Monday of next week in particular. So, outlook for tonight. There it is. 2 to 5 centimeters, and we're looking at those pockets of maybe 5 to 10. Cobequid Pass, Mount Tom, and in through Cape Breton as well, solid 5 to 10 centimeters there. If you're up into the Highlands, might get into the 10 to 15 centimeter range, not drive over it there, as we will be looking at this system coming in overnight, as we can see here. Note the temperatures bumping up. 1, 2, 3 degrees. We should all at least get to the freezing mark, maybe just below places like Amherst, but it's going to be close. And you can see even into Cape Breton by tomorrow morning should be around 1 or 2 degrees. So it's a brief changeover to light rain and drizzle, which will make things a little on the slushy side for tomorrow morning. So could be a little bit slick on the roads tomorrow morning. Take your time. Southwest winds for most of the mainland tonight. It's a southeast wind for Cape Breton, gusting to 50, except gusting to 70 in Les-Souette winds. Now, as we walk you through tomorrow, we'll see some sunshine breaking through, but also the chance for some showers mixed with a few flurries. We're going to be seeing temperatures with that sunshine into the afternoon bumping up into the 2, 3, 4, and 5 degree range. Those southwest winds still sustain near 20, gusting to 40 kilometers per hour, shifting to southwest for you folks in Cape Breton. And not too bad for sure. Friday, we're going to be looking at light northwest winds, temperatures anywhere from +1 to about -2. Clouds could be a bit stubborn early on in the day, but as this system passes just to the south, but then we're into the sunshine into the afternoon. High pressure holding for Saturday, keeping us quiet, and then this next front starting to approach. And again, on the other side of this cold front, you can see mild still for Saturday. Sunday will even hang on to the mild temperatures, but not after that. And here comes this cold pocket of air, and it charges in and settles in for Monday. And it looks like even Tuesday into Wednesday, we're going to be watching the potential for a storm system, as you'll see in just a second. But beyond that, it does look like we're going to warm up again late next week. The swings of March. And yes, March begins on Sunday. Just a few flurries, so I guess we're in like a lamb, but certainly temperatures in like a lion for Sunday night into Monday with Monday looking set to be the coldest day across the province since January 30th. So over a month. So we'll have to dig out those long johns again.
Yeah, brace yourself.
Brace ourselves for sure. All right. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Well, back to provincial politics for a moment. Communities, Culture, Tourism and Heritage Minister Dave Ritzie faced questions today about cuts to tourism and the arts.
He was asked if stakeholders would be told why certain programs were chosen to be slashed in this week's budget. Here's some of that exchange with some members of the press gallery.
I haven't gone through the list of cuts and compared it to the list of grants, but are you saying that every grant from your department got cut?
Significantly, yes. The one area that, library funding did not get cut. It maintained 16.4. The film fund did not get cut, 39 million again this year.
As was brought up during question period, though, the film development fund was cut. Why is that?
I have to get back to you on that.
Minister, I don't mean this in a flippant way, so please don't.
Sure.
I hope you don't take it disrespectfully.
No.
But it feels like, given the magnitude of the cuts that your government has introduced, a bare minimum expectation would be that the people responsible for them could speak about them in more detail than we've heard from any member of your cabinet so far.
So, sorry, Michael.
Who can tell us? Who can walk through these cuts?
It does not seem like an unreasonable expectation that someone from government, 3 days into a session where the budget has been tabled, could be able to talk in a more detailed way about these cuts than we've heard from any member of your cabinet so far.
And we'll I'll get back to you, Michael, on that. In true fashion, really, it was. It was a discussion within the department, and I don't know if you're talking specifically just in arts and culture or just
right now support. You're here specifically because many of those cuts, sir, are to arts and culture and tourism, and as the cabinet representative for those, I think people affected would have hoped that they could have heard more details from you about why this is happening to them.
Right, and I think right now we're focusing on what Nova Scotians need the most at this time.
And that's not arts and culture?
No, we're continuing to invest in arts and culture.
Just by less?
We're still investing in arts and culture.
So what explanation did you offer when you were making maybe you could tell us, was it a phone call, was it an email, when you reached out to these organizations that are affected?
That was our staff reaching out via email, via letter to the organizations.
And what explanation did they provide when they sent those letters and emails?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that.
From your understanding, did everyone get the same form letter? From your understanding, did everyone get the same form letter?
Yeah, the same form letter.
Because I've seen at least one of them. I've seen one of them so far, and that one didn't really offer any explanation. It just said we recognize this would be tough on your organization.
Yeah.
Is that the same one everyone got?
Yes.
So nobody got an explanation of why their specific cut was decided?
No.
Right.
Don't you think they deserve an explanation, Minister?
That's what I'll leave to the staff. My staff, I got a great team, and they'll walk through and work with the organizations that receive the cuts.
Respectfully, sir, the public doesn't vote for your staff, they vote for you. They elected your government. Shouldn't you be able to stand here and account for your decisions to the very people who voted for you?
Yeah, and like I said, Michael, we're focusing on Nova Scotians, and we continue to invest in arts and culture.
Do you think that they deserve an explanation?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Coming up, the Association of Nova Scotia Museums says budget cuts will have a devastating impact on tourism and heritage in the province. Nova Scotia government is shutting down 12 of 28 provincial museums. It says some of these sites see fewer than 1,000 visitors a year. For more on this, we're joined by Tegan Rowlings, president of the Association of Nova Scotia Museums. So first off, what was your reaction when you learned these cuts were coming?
Well, we were fortunate enough to learn about these cuts early on. We were invited to the lockup for the budget just ahead of the budget being presented in the House. I think the general feeling is that we're pretty devastated at kind of the breadth of these cuts and what that's really going to mean for, you know, not only the museum sector, but what that's going to mean for the heritage sector in general in the province, tourism, and kind of all of the spin-off things that happen related to museums.
Well, for folks who haven't visited these museums, Prescott House in Port Williams or Fisherman's Life Museum in Jador, Oyster Pond, what kind of history is stored in there? Can you give us what the experience is like?
Sure. So I can speak specifically to Fisherman's Life Museum. That's actually just down the road from my museum here in Musquodoboit Harbor. You know, a lot of these museums are telling, you know, kind of hyper local stories. A lot of them are rural stories of the museums that are being closed down. And so these are stories that are, you know, family stories that are important to the community stories that are important to like the general history of the area, but also speak to kind of the larger history of our province.
Well, what will happen to the contents of these museums and the buildings that house them?
So that's something that we're still in communication with the Nova Scotia Museum about. Our membership includes both community museums and the provincial museums. So there's been a lot of scrambling to kind of, you know, disseminate how this is affecting everyone, because it is different depending on what kind of museums we're looking at. But yeah, generally, we're still kind of reeling. We're in a lot of talks with a lot of different stakeholders right now, including a lot of our museum staff that we're trying to support.
Mm-hmm. Now, the province says the dozen museums up for closure account for just 3% of the total attendance across all Nova Scotia museums. So will shutting them down make much of an impact on, say, the tourism sector?
Well, like I said, a lot of these museums are in rural areas. So they may not see the type of visitorship that some of the larger museums in, like, say, the downtown core would see, just because they don't have the same amount of traffic. But I don't think that kind of formula of, you know, low visitorship means less important. So that's what we're trying to work out right now.
Any thoughts on whether maybe the private sector might step up and take them over?
So I did have the opportunity to talk to the Deputy Minister of CCTH, Chris Shore, when I was at the lockup after the budget had been presented. And he indicated to us that that is their hope that will happen. Now, what would need to happen in order for these in order for these provincial museums to be divested back to community is that the community would need to be supported in that, and the Nova Scotia Museum family would need to be supported in that. My Association of Nova Scotia Museums, kind of already works as an advocacy and training association. So we would see ourselves as kind of helping with those transitions. The challenge being with the overall cuts to the CMAP program, which provides operational funding for all of the museums that are part of those, so community museums and provincial museums alike, with the cuts that we're seeing to that program, you know, they're lessening the pot, but they potentially want to be adding those 12 museums. The museums can't run without funding. And we can't expect these to all be taken on as volunteer efforts. Like they said themselves, there's maintenance costs involved. There's preservation costs, there's staffing. So I think in a perfect world, that is what everyone would like to see happen at this point, if we can't go backwards, obviously. But at the same time, we have no idea how that's going to work financially or where that support is going to come from.
All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, U.S. President Donald Trump defends his tariff policy and immigration crackdown during his State of the Union address.
And Canadian cabinet ministers have more questions than answers after meeting with OpenAI executives in the wake of the Tumbler Ridge shooting. Welcome back. Despite slumping poll numbers, U.S. President Donald Trump struck a defiant note in his long State of the Union address Tuesday night.
He rallied supporters, chided opponents, and painted a rosy picture of life in the U.S. today. The CBC's Willie Lowry has more.
President Donald Trump stuck to the same message that really he's been repeating now for over a year, that America is back, the economy is strong, and that the country is raking in money like never before. And he really tried to focus on what he perceives as wins, from the economy to his immigration crackdown, though interestingly, he did not even mention the events in Minneapolis that really gripped the nation for several weeks.
When I last spoke in this chamber 12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels, a wide open border, horrendous recruitment for military and police, rampant crime at home, and wars and chaos all over the world. But tonight, after just 1 year, I can say with dignity and pride that we have achieved a transformation like no one has ever seen before.
Again, he really focused on the economy, speaking of it in glowing terms about just how strong it's performing. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. He claimed that there was no inflation. While it certainly slowed over the last year, it still sits at about 2.4%. And for the most part, he stayed mostly on script. There were a few moments where he chided the Democrats, and he touched on the Supreme Court rulings striking down the use of the International Emergency Powers Act to impose tariffs, but he was fairly restrained for the most part. And this speech was full of symbolism and moments. Perhaps the most symbolic and memorable moment was when he invited the U.S. men's hockey team to enter the chamber. They received bipartisan cheering and applause, pretty much the only time that happened last night. Willie Lowry, CBC News, Washington.
Donald Trump didn't have much to say about Canada in his address Tuesday night, but two political figures who are close to the American president did. The CBC's Katie Simpson has more from Washington.
As U.S. President Donald Trump finished his speech, key members of his administration emerged from the chamber and actually stopped to take some questions from reporters. And that's where we caught up with Jameson Greer. He is the U.S. trade representative. He is the top American official that is dealing with Canada-U.S. relations when it comes to the all-important trading relationship. When he was asked about are talks going to get back on track, he sort of gave an answer where he talked about Canada possibly needing to be open to accepting a higher tariff rate in order to allow the Trump administration to bring more jobs back to the United States. Have a listen.
What I will say is when we go to other countries and we make a deal with them, the other countries, they agree that we can have a tariff on them, that we can have a protective tariff to protect our industries as we try to reshore, and they open their markets to us. If Canada wants to agree that we can have some level of higher tariff on them while they open up their markets to us and things like dairy and other things, then that's a helpful conversation.
So those are the latest demands from the Trump administration. And remember, it comes as Canada, the U.S. and Mexico is working toward that July 1st deadline where all three countries are going to have to figure out, are they going to renew that three-way trade deal, CUSMA, as we call it in Canada. So this is sort of another pressure point overshadowing this moment. Now, other key allies for Donald Trump spoke as well, and we actually caught up with House Speaker Mike Johnson, and we asked him about some of the harsh words that Donald Trump has had for Canada and how Canadians at some times are offended, and he seemed to suggest that Canadians shouldn't necessarily take it to heart.
I regard Canada as a good neighbor and a close ally, and I think those relationships will transcend all this time right now.
Canada did get one explicit mention during Donald Trump's State of the Union address when he talked about the American men's hockey team beating a fantastic Canadian hockey team. Otherwise, there weren't any specific mentions of Canada or any attacks on Canada other than that moment there. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
During his State of the Union address, President Trump renewed his vow to prevent Iran from building nuclear weapons. That, as a pivotal third round of nuclear talks between the two countries is set to begin on Thursday. The CBC's Crystal Gamansingh reports.
Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian says that his negotiating team is going into those talks in Geneva with a good outlook. Meanwhile, the level of coercion remains. That massive buildup of military arsenal still in the region. Now, officials are saying that they don't want a conflict, that they want diplomacy to succeed here, but getting a deal that each side could walk away with and claim victory will not be easy. However, the director of the Iranian project at Crisis International Group says there is one that he can see on the table, but it won't be easy.
If President Trump manages to get Iranians to continue the suspension of uranium enrichment, that is in practice zero enrichment that President Obama could never get, President Biden could never get, but he has obtained that, even if it's for a short period of time. If he manages to turn the future of Iran's nuclear program into a laboratory size enrichment, or a regional consortium, so Iran no longer has sovereign enrichment. Again, that is a real victory.
Alvarez says if the two sides don't leave the meeting in Geneva on Thursday saying they have an agreement, then he believes the strike window opens up and there could be some kinetic activity starting as of the weekend. It is a fear here that if there is a strike, it would not be contained, that Iran would not have any reason to do a small targeted response. And given the size of the American arsenal here, that they would not be limited in scope. However, we did hear the U.S. President Donald Trump say at his State of the Union address that he would prefer to use diplomacy, although he said he would not back away from anyone who is willing to threaten America and very much sees Iran as a current threat. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Ottawa says it might make changes to artificial intelligence regulations. This comes after cabinet ministers met with OpenAI, the tech company that failed to forward information about the teen who went on to commit a mass shooting in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, one minister said they were, quote, disappointed by the meeting with the company.
How was the meeting? The federal government expected big changes from OpenAI.
We did not hear any substantial new safety protocols outside of some changes to their model.
The artificial intelligence minister summoned the big tech company to a closed-door meeting after learning it had troubling information about the Tumbler Ridge shooter, but didn't inform police until after the tragedy.
And Canadians should know that as soon as this stuff happens, we will have, accountability and we will get understanding.
After sitting down with 6 OpenAI representatives for more than an hour, cabinet ministers left disappointed. Was there anything troubling that you heard?
Yes.
What exactly did you hear?
They need to do a lot better, and the processes and systems need to evolve.
The message that we delivered in no uncertain terms was that we have an expectation that there are going to be changes implemented, and if they're not forthcoming very quickly, the government's going to be making changes.
In a statement to CBC News, OpenAI called the discussion frank, saying the ministers underscored that Canadians expected continued concrete action and heard that message loud and clear.
From the outside, it looks like they had a chance to prevent this.
British Columbia Premier David Eby is demanding answers from OpenAI and Ottawa.
There should also be an obligation to report.
The Prime Minister is promising to do something.
Obviously, anything that anyone could have done to prevent that tragedy or future tragedies must be done. We will fully explore it to the full length of the law. We'll be very transparent about that process.
That unless the government has some mechanism to force these companies to do something, they may or may not do it.
This tech expert says federal legislation that regulates AI platforms is long overdue.
If you were in a jurisdiction like Europe, if there's the suspicion of a person committing harm, the platform would have an obligation or a duty under the law to report it to somebody.
The federal government says it's weighing all its legislative options as it waits for OpenAI to report back on what it will do to prevent another tragedy. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's a province known for its fishing and oil industries, but Newfoundland and Labrador has seen big growth in a new sector, tech startups. Now, a new round of venture capital funding may discover the next big company there. The CBC's Peter Cowan has more.
When Adam Keating launched CoLab in St. John's, he was offered $1 million to move it to Silicon Valley. The company helps engineering teams collaborate on designs, but Keating says it wouldn't be one of the fastest growing companies in North America with almost 200 employees if he left.
We actually just felt we had a much better competitive advantage building at home because people wanted to join, people cared what we were doing. We were sort of unique in what we were doing versus being in Silicon Valley at the time. We would have just been one of a million companies trying to start a company.
The Polaris Fund is trying to find the next CoLab by putting together its third venture fund targeting Newfoundland and Labrador. When it started in 2015, it was mostly governments investing in Newfoundland tech. But that fund has already returned $1.50 for every dollar put in, and private investors are now putting in more than governments.
There's more and more evidence that it's real, and I think that's convinced a lot of people that they want to be involved.
It was Verifin that showed the world that big tech could come out of a small province. The St. John's company helps banks spot fraud. NASDAQ bought it for more than $3.5 billion and spawned a wave of new entrepreneurs.
Was there anything else you found so far?
Brent Pretty quit his job at Verifin to start Verlo. He's building AI software to help financial advisors. Right now, they have a team of 3 and will soon be bringing on their first client. Seeing other startups succeed in Newfoundland encouraged him to go for it.
It creates almost a flywheel effect of we now have an ecosystem of people and that have now decades of experience in the tech industry that you can draw from.
Rather than compete, companies help each other. Keating is mentoring the next generation of companies, and this prof says that could be key to Newfoundland and Labrador's success.
There tends to be a lot of connections between people that helps them learn from each other. And if someone learns how to build a business or get funding, that information can then spread to other people and help them develop companies as well.
The next big challenge is getting enough new workers for the quickly growing companies. Peter Cowan, CBC News, St. John's.
Canada's main stock index finished higher today, helped by gains in the technology and financial sectors as U.S. markets also gained ground. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break.
This weather update is brought to you in part by Atlantic Lottery's iGames. Play hundreds of games on the Atlantic Lottery app or at alc.ca.
You know, not only has Ryan been busy with the weather forecast these last few days, it's the Ryan's picks selection.
Yes.
I mean, they've been building up, right?
It's true.
I know, because we had a shorter show during the Olympics.
We did.
There was no time.
No viewer picks for 2 weeks, and the inbox filled right up. So plenty to choose from in the coming days, and they keep coming in as well. Have a look at this one. This one we're going to go east of Halifax to Mineville, and a beautiful shot here. Winter scene.
Pretty. The sun.
Claire O'Brien, thank you so much. And yeah, when the sun is out and everything's coated in snow like that, looking very, very nice. And thanks to Claire for sharing this. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Now, a little bit more snow tonight. Not a ton, 2 to 5 centimeters. Could see some pockets that do get up into that 5 to 10 centimeter range. The best chances for that is indeed going to be over higher terrain, especially the Cobequid Pass and into Cape Breton and the Highlands, where we could see some amounts there pushing towards 10 to 15 centimeters. Now, as we look ahead into tomorrow afternoon, what we're going to be seeing, well, actually tonight, that snow changes to a very brief period of light rain and drizzle. Tomorrow, more showers mixed with a few flurries into the afternoon. And then we're watching our next storm system pass to the south. So not really our storm system, but yes, watching that one move to the south, thankfully. And then that area of high pressure settles in, keeping things calm for Friday, Saturday. And then we're watching that cold front that's going to start to approach for Sunday. And on the other side of that front comes the coldest shot we've seen in a month. I looked back today. Remember that stretch at the end of January where it was super cold for like 7 to 10 days? We haven't had anything like that. And that's really what Monday is going to be like in terms of those temperatures. The good news is it will not be sustained. Quick little shot in for Tuesday and Wednesday, and then we're warming up again by late next week. So Monday looks cold, but we can hang in there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thanks, Ryan. A Japanese university has unveiled an AI-powered humanoid Buddhist monk robot.
This robot is looking to give people a sense of Zen with the help of artificial intelligence. The robotic monk is known as the Buddharoid. It offers spiritual advice while providing a presence at religious sanctuaries.
It's designed by researchers at the University of Kyoto. Those behind the bot say it might come in handy to help or even replace their human counterparts.
There you go. All right, that's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.